rend one's enemies is to see them not as equals, but objects hollow of spirit and meaning. Augmented through dark practices, Thorn was once a hero's weapon. Its jagged frame hints at a sinister truth, a powerful connection to the unutterable sorceries of the Hive. The legend of Thorn is bound to the rise and fall of Dredgen Yor, a guardian whose name is remembered with disgust and shame. The weapon was thought destroyed, but rumours of his existence still haunt the wilds. The weapons of sorrow are not the endgame, but a roadmap. Each evolution, every advance in the delivery of pain and the mastery of destruction feeds the Hive's hateful weapons research. They will map every scream, harness every aggression until they understand every method by which to ravage the hearts, minds and flesh of man. And in doing so, they will turn us against ourselves, feeding our lust, our greed, our fear, until we become a threat unto ourselves. Like none we could imagine, so willed these angry reaper. Strive to know the darkness in your own heart. Walk in the shadows of fallen heroes and know that you are an enemy of hope. Let's start where it all began. Rezel quickly became a leader among the survivors of the collapse, who came seeking shelter under the Traveller, guiding humanity through infighting as well as against alien scavengers to create the city and its walls. Despite the success of the city and its guardians, Rezel grew frustrated at the constant battles. He is described as growing tired of small wins, however meaningful. Rezel travelled to the moon where he discovered that the Hive was still active. He proceeded into the Hellmouth without his ghost and encountered Zior. After battling many Hive, Rezel faced a knight covered in bone armour. After 2 days, Rezel emerged from the Hellmouth bearing the bones of the knight as a trophy, and while he recounted once more the events of his time in the shadows, he took his rose from his holster and began grafting the bone to its still frame. Just another trophy from another battle won. It was only later, and far too late, that the whispers came and bones revealed their true, jagged purpose. The exact process Rezel underwent is unknown. Over time, his fears and his pride led him to want more. Whispers from the darkness slowly grew into a voice, seducing him with promises of power and glory. Eventually, he turned away from the light, abandoned his own persona and he adopted a new name, Dredgen Yor, which in an old language means the eternal abyss. On his last day, he sat and watched the sun fall. His final thoughts, pure of mind if not body, held to a fleeting hope that they would suffer from the man he would become. The people would remember him as he had been. And so the noble man hid himself beneath a darkness no flesh should touch, and gave up his mortal self to claim a new birthright. Whether this was choice or destiny is a truth known only to fate. In that cool evening air, as dusk was devoured by night, the noble man ceased to exist. In his place another stood. Same meat, same bone, but so very different. The first and only of his family, the sole forebearer and last descendant of the name Yor. In his first moments as a new being, he looked down at his rose and realised for the first time that it had no petals, only the jagged purpose of angry thorns. So what was known as Rose will forever be known as Thorn. Or will it? Let's talk about a well-known hunter named Jaron Ward. If you haven't heard of him, surely you've heard of his weapon. He was the first known guardian that wielded the last word. Most of our information on Jaron Ward comes from Shin Malphur. Ward visited the town of Palamon, where he killed the dictatorial magistrate Lokin. After Lokin's death, Ward attempted to bring 9 individuals from Palamon back to the city. 3 of these individuals were killed during the journey. In the very early morning of the 9th day of their trek, the remaining group awoke to the sound of gunfire. One gun was unmistakably Jaron Ward's the last word. The other gun is described as having sounded dark and infernal, and later confirmed to be Dredgen Yor's Thorn. Malphur, fearing Ward to be dead, left the group, and in doing so found Ward's ghost, confirming his fear that Ward was killed in the gunfight. Yor wasn't faster than Jaron, and Jaron didn't miss. Yor was just more than Jaron. Yor was other. It took fire to burn him down, and Jaron, for all his gifts, was lacking in fire. We were all not saying I was first. The lessons I learned, the ability I owned to ignite my rage and direct it through my cannon. Those were hard lessons learned on a hard, hot planet. Before Osiris's exile, before the gap, my pilgrimage was long and pained and driven by my hate. But that was my point. Skill was not enough. Confidence was no weapon, not when faced with the terrors of the dark. Yor knew this. Yor counted on it. So when Jaren faced him down, Yor gave him the first shot, offered freely, but Jaren's lead wasn't enough. And when Yor replied, his sickness consumed Jaren's light and left Shin once again an orphan. Once again, weighed down by sorrow and anger, Yor sought to gift Shin Jaren's prize as a means to tempt him, and it did. When that gun finally met his hand again, it was the catalyst that drove him to find a way to avenge all Shin had loved. It was a selfish pursuit. But when Yor and Shin finally met on the flat, high ridge, Shin was ready. And as he would come to find, so was Yor. Ready to offer his final lesson, his final gift, a final push towards Shin's true destiny. One that would put him at odds with heroes in order to ensure our worlds are filled with fewer monsters. It was a path Shin was sure to walk alone, until he found others, until he found trust, until he found hidden value in that which he had always feared: shadows. And this is a small extract from Shin Malphur himself, and that is it. And that is the all of it. A journey from nowhere to here, from my life to yours. It all started with Yor, but now the journey is yours. I never told anyone this, not even Tebin, but the first whisper I heard was not aboard your ship when we found his writings, nor was it when we followed his path and resurrected our own deceased replicas of Thorn. The first whisper was on the ridge, standing over his body. Just before I released the final 2 sun-baked charges into his limp, motionless body, there was a faint calling, wicked words in a hateful tongue. I've lived with these words every day and every night since. They were simple, they were quiet, they were this. For the longest time I took them as a threat, as the abyss offering a promise that death had not been sated that day, and that it would come, as it always has, for everyone and everything we know. But that would mean death is something to fear, that the natural order is our enemy. And then, years later, I got to thinking about Yor, but more importantly about Azir, and I came to a realization that doesn't have to be true to be my truth. And it is this: these words were not the abyss. They were not a worm's whisper or a vile promise, nor were they a threat. They were a warning from Azir to me. A fight had ended, but not the fight. He was telling me, warning me, and a journey had ended, but many more were to come. The same goes for you. Yor, me, the shadows, Thorn, the last word. In the wake of your legend, we will all be the footnotes, afterthoughts, forgotten by most, and someday another will make the same of you. This is our purpose, this is our charge, to inspire those who would continue our efforts. So go now, this chapter is over, but remember now, and remember always, nothing ends.